to the Sheldon Show. Today I'm here with Mr. Jordan Boone, and he is the president and CEO of NationTen Brand. Do I have that correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. He also started this company as well. I decided to interview him because I thought this would be a really inspirational story for anyone out there, especially young people who are thinking of perhaps starting their own business, starting their own company. I felt like this is someone that you needed to hear from so that you can be inspired as well. So before we get into an in-depth interview with him today, what I'll do is I'll have Jordan kind of tell you a little bit more about himself, introduce himself, and then we'll go from there. So.
Well, my name is Jordan Boone. I am the president and CEO of NationTen Brand, an athletic apparel company. We're similar to Nike, Adidas, Under Armour. We do a lot of what they do. We make everything from socks all the way up to hats, football uniforms, basketball uniforms, baseball, the whole 9 yards.
Okay. All right. So my first question for you is, did you always know that you wanted to go into business?
There was a side of me. I always knew that I wanted to be involved in business in some way because I used to, sell candy. I used to, have my own little masseuse table and everything. I used to help massage my aunts and uncles and everything for like $10, $15.
Yeah.
I used to cut yards a lot. I always did it, but I didn't really focus on it until it was time to choose a path.
Okay.
That we all go through, going through college, graduating college and everything. I really didn't focus on that until then.
Okay. So tell me about your childhood and your neighborhood where you grew up. Is that something that you saw around you constantly, business? Was it in the home, or is that something that came, it seems like you're saying that's something that came later. So let's talk a little bit about your childhood so we could build up to the story here.
Okay.
Where you grew up, the home in which you grew up, the neighborhood, your circumstances, and how that has impacted your life and the choices that you've made.
Right. Well, I grew up in Eastwood. I grew up in,
So that's Fort Worth.
Fort Worth.
Yeah.
Right. Eastwood in Fort Worth. Not too far. It was the community that's where you seen poverty. Yeah. That's when you seen, people that's addicted to drugs. That's when you seen, some of the worst circumstances. I've seen it. Anything I've seen it.
Yeah.
As far as my own home, I have my mom, I have my dad, my brother, and everything. We weren't entirely involved in that.
Okay.
They did teach us about financial stability to a point, but it was a lot of figuring out that me and my brother had to do.
Mm-hmm.
There was, when it came to business, both my parents worked, normal jobs. My dad, my mom. My dad only had received a 2-year degree at Texas Wesleyan. My mom, she went and got a bachelor's, but she went and got that while me and my brother, my brother's 3 years older than me.
Okay.
So she got that after she had me. So she was about 27, 28 when she received her bachelor's. As far as everything that I've seen, it didn't influence me to go into business. It influenced me to take a different route.
And so tell me about some of the things that you saw, about some of the friends that you had that were perhaps going a different direction than you.
Some of my closest friends, we've seen drugs, from you name it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it. A lot of them involved in, a lot of stealing, a lot of that, and these are the guys that I was hanging out with every day, or almost every day. So that's what I've seen. So that was influencing me at that point, at a young age.
Was there a particular moment or a certain set of things that caused you to decide, you know what, I'm going to go a different direction? Were there some pivotal moments while you were hanging out with your friends or whatever the case is that it kind of said, you know what, this is not for me, I want to do something else?
Right around 16, 17, that's when you start seeing your friends going to jail for the rest of their lives. When we're young, like you're a teenager, you just got old enough to be able to drive a car, but you'll never be able to drive because now you're in jail.
Yeah.
You're in penitentiary for the rest of your life. And these are the guys that I was hanging out with. So it came to like, wow, that could have easily been me if I just would have said yes and just went with them.
Yeah.
That could have easily been me, but when I've experienced it and I've seen them get sentenced and everything, that's when I was like, okay, I need to do something else.
Okay. Tell me about the role models in your life. Elaborate a little bit more on the role that your parents played, because I know we think, okay, parents are parents,
Right.
but how influential were your parents in also keeping you away from doing certain things? And then did you have any other role models outside of your parents that perhaps helped you to stay on the right track?
My parents, they played a very big part in my life, especially my grandparents too. They played a very big part of my life, especially like my dad. He was more direct, he was more firm.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you need to treat people. You need to treat people right. Wherever they go a very long way. My dad has always been like that. He's always will be like that.
Yeah.
My mom was always the more supportive role. As long as we were doing something positive, she was with us. My brother, he's one of the hardest on me because he wants me to be great in whatever I do.
Okay.
You know, when it came to basketball, me and him, we got into it a lot,
Yeah.
but that's because he wanted me to be great at it.
Okay.
And me, even with business, same thing.
So tell me the role sports played in your life, or your coach played in your life as well.
Sports was an outlet.
Yeah.
It was an outlet from everything that we were seeing. When you're on the court, when you're
Basketball, right?
Yeah, basketball. When you're on the court, tuned in, you forget about what's going on for that, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, however long the game is, That played a very big role. I played that from when I was 4 years old all the way up to college.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an outlet for me, and it played a very big part. And I'm still involved in the sports world from what I do.
Okay. Yeah. Perfect. So let's talk about, as far as the sports is concerned, I try to tell a lot of people everyone's not going to go to the NBA, right? Everyone's not going to go to the NFL, and at some point, reality needs to settle in, and then some people just get tired. You said you got tired of it after a while. When you realized then that sports was, it had come to its end, so to speak, in terms of this is how far I think it's going to take me. How hard was that to accept and then make the transition to business?
It was very hard to accept because when you just lose a passion, you're not playing at the level that you normally play. Yeah. It's just like, and how I got away from it, because I know a lot of people that deal with it and they really can't deal with the fact that they can't play anymore.
That they can't play anymore.
For me, I was not around the gym at all. I did not walk by a gym. I did not even, if you asked me to go play basketball, it was a no. Yeah. Because if I did it, then something's going to spark up and we're going to try it again. I'm going to be doing it, trying for the rest of my life, And so for me, it was like, okay, I need to get occupied with something else. So I took the business route,
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about your business now. How did you start your business? What did the idea come from to start NationTen Brand?
The idea came from, we were spending a lot of money when it came to apparel, dry fit shirts, jerseys, everything. And the idea for me was like, man, I can do that. I see, the screen, I know I can do that. Yeah. I know I can do that. And then it keeps me around sports too. Yeah. Let's try it. Mm-hmm. So I went online and bought that shirt off of spreadshirt.com. Okay. So when I did that, I only made like $5 or something, something small. But then that's where it really sparked the idea.
Okay. So how much money did you have when you started the business?
I had $47.
Okay. Explain how you go from $47 to having a company. I'll let you run through that part.
Well, how I did it.
Yeah.
it was I had $47. I paid like $20 for the shirt, sold it for $25, $5 profit, whatever. Okay. And I was like, man, that was easy. I didn't do any work. I did that a couple times and tried to save, but then I realized that you need another source of money. You need an influx. You need something, an infusion. So I went and got a job at a car wash. Mm-hmm. I was washing cars. 100-degree weather, 30-degree weather. It didn't matter. We was there. Yeah. So I was going to school, and then I was working there on the weekend, and that's when I started putting my money towards the business.
Okay. So were you started to buy shirts, sell them back, buy shirts, sell them back, and working at a car dealership helped with customers.
Right. Okay. Right. Working at the car wash.
The car wash.
That's what it was mainly dealing with, management and seeing how it was ran and everything. And then later started working at the car dealership, that's when we started dealing with customers.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back and talk some more about how he started his business. Hello and welcome back to the conversation that I'm having with Jordan, who is president and CEO of NationTen Brand. So we were talking about just before we had the break, kind of go through in detail for me when you were selling the shirts at the car wash, how much you were paying for the shirts, because just in case anyone, when people are looking, I want them to kind of have a more clear idea how much you were paying for shirts, how much you were flipping them for, and then kind of how the business kind of progressed from there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
At that time when I was starting, I was paying, it was very expensive. I'm telling you, it was like $20 for the shirt, and that's with the design on it and everything. And you can't charge anybody, too much more than that.
For sure,
So I was charging like 25 then.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that was for me, to happen for me, and to happen for anyone else that wants to do it, was getting connected with a screen printer, heat printer, somebody that's very talented at what they do.
Yeah.
That'll help your cost, even if it's helping you, $10, $15.
Yeah.
You're going from 20 to 10 now.
It's a big difference in your profit margin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can sell it for 20. And then after that, if you want to get deeper, whatever it's clothing lines or whatever you want to do, getting connected with a manufacturer.
Yeah.
Once you get that connection, your cost goes down even more.
Yeah.
So now you go from, I was at $20 all the way down to now my cost is $5 completed.
It's a huge difference in the profit margin.
Exactly.
So take me through, you're selling some, let's just call it, you're flipping some shirts, right, at the car wash. When did you decide, I'm done flipping shirts at the car wash, I'm going to turn this into what it is now? And then what was the process as you're figuring out the screen printing, the manufacturer, walk us through that part.
When I walked in, when I got connected with a screen printer, and I've seen all these shirts being made.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. I said, so it gave me a really good idea of what the potential could be, So I went from, working at the car wash and, selling shirts outside to now getting connected with teams, getting connected with
How did you get connected with the teams? Because I think that's when a lot of people run into, they got the great ideas, but no, they need connections. I think sometimes people feel like, well, somebody needs to go out and do the work for them. They don't realize there's dirty work that you got. So tell me about the dirty work that you did to get those teams on board.
The dirty work was my first team, and I love him to death, man. My dad, AAU basketball team, because he coached me. Him and my brother, he coached me. So he said, well, since you're doing this, come over here and do these shirts for us. All I needed was one. Yeah. You have to have that mentality in business.
Just need to break through.
Exactly. Yeah. Whether it's landscaping, whether it's construction, whatever it is, all I need is one.
Yeah.
I get one. After that, it's a domino.
Yeah, it starts to get easier.
Exactly. So we went from there, and I said, you know what? And that's when we started to get later on. I started working at a car dealership, selling cars.
Yeah.
Man, I'm telling you now. Oh man, I'm telling you now. That was one of the best experiences, because that's grinding.
Yeah.
That's grinding. We had to make calls every day, 40, 50 calls every day. And, this is from a list.
Wow.
So I was still running the business then. At this point, I graduated from college. This is what I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah. I translated that to the business. Yeah. I still do that to this day. I would never stop doing that. Yeah. I said, okay, if I had to call 50 people,
for somebody else,
I could
do it for myself.
I could do it for myself. I'm trying to tell you how to now this $35,000 car can fit in your budget. Yeah. Now I'm just trying to tell you these uniforms would look great on your team. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And here's an example of it.
Here's an example of it.
Okay. That's the grind of it.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people don't get. It's like a lot of people want a business because it sounds nice.
Right.
I work for myself. It sounds really nice.
Right.
What I don't understand is all the hard work that goes in behind the scenes. So you decide you're going to do this business. You got your first team on board. Kind of walk me through the rest to where you are right now, the build up.
Biggest thing, as soon as I got that first team, it's pictures. You got to take pictures of your work.
Yeah.
You got to post it. Social media is a
So that's where social media comes in.
Exactly, that's where social media came in. And at first, I was just, mainly doing it for, personal.
Yeah.
Just like, you just want to stay up to date with what's going on with everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And then I kicked leisure. I punted leisure.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, let me focus on this. As soon as I got that first thing, I was calling 40, 50 people. Hey, we love it. No, yes.
And you're gonna get a lot of no's.
You're gonna get a lot of no's. I'll probably later today I'm gonna make some calls or whatever.
Yeah.
I'll probably call 40, 50 people today.
Yeah.
Some won't answer, and some say no.
Yeah.
All I need is a yes.
Yeah.
Those 2, 3 yeses, we're gonna make those count.
Yeah.
And those other people are gonna come on board.
Yeah. Because and that's I think what a lot of people need to get to is it's a grind that builds up slowly,
Right.
and you create a clientele over a period of time.
Right.
So like a lot of these big companies that have all these clientele, I mean, that didn't happen
Right.
overnight.
Yeah.
My grandmother used to say Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's a
Right.
great empire. I mean, somebody would also tell you Rome was destroyed, but that's another story.
Right.
But the fact is, it wasn't built in a day when it was a great
Right.
empire, right? And I think a lot of people need to understand that the grind has to continue, and it's a while before you're working on autopilot
Right.
type of stuff. And you
Right.
still even have to keep your eyes on your business as well.
Oh,
Yeah, because So when you first started making money,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, because you grew up humble home type of stuff. I mean, but when you first started getting, I guess, some real money, how did you feel? How were you able to control yourself with the first real check?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I couldn't. I did not control myself, and this is me being brutally honest. I'm not gonna sit here and say, hey, I saved it, and it's just no. When you're 19 or 20, and you're making that money. You go from making $8 an hour to hundreds of thousands or whatever the case is. I see what these professional athletes go through. I see it because how can you tell me not to spend it?
Yeah.
After
you work so hard.
After I worked so hard for it, after I got all these no's, after I spent all this time, why not?
Why not? Enjoy it.
Exactly.
So when did you realize enjoying it is one thing, but you got to keep some of it, and you got to keep working.
Right.
You can't just stop because I got 50,000 now, so
right.
I'm good.
Right.
I mean that's a good chunk of change, but it could finish. Right.
Right. You can when you taxes.
Yeah.
You played a very big part paying taxes. Realizing that you have responsibilities.
Yeah.
I caught on quick, and that's why I appreciate the family that I have and the friends, the positive friends that I have around me. When you get caught onto that, you're like, okay, I need to stop. I need to slow down. You said I made how much, and what do I have now?
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
Yeah.
So when I started realizing that, that's when I started slowing down and really start focusing more on the business.
I remember I was watching an Oprah show one time, and she was saying, talking to someone who was talking about money, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep.
Right.
Because you got to keep, and the more you're keeping and keeping and keeping and keeping, is the more the bank account is growing and growing and growing. And then after a while, you have the freedom to be able to do more things.
Right.
But and I have a friend of mine who he owns his own company and everything, and he used to do taxes.
Okay.
And he would tell me that he would do taxes for people who were making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year.
Right.
And they were broke. Because they were living like they were making $3,000, $4,000, $100,000 a year, because they felt like they had to keep up with the person. They had to live in a certain neighborhood.
Right.
They had to buy a certain type of car.
Right.
And the mistake that they were making too, it's not like they were waiting 3 years to do the $300,000 deal. They were doing it as the money's coming in. So you're operating in debt. So though you make $500,000 this year, when you factor in the interest in what owe people, you're not really worth anything.
Right.
So when they got hit with recession and stuff like that, they were all screaming because you realize you're making all this money, but you're not keeping any of it, right? So I think being humble is one of those things that anyone who starts making money has got to really kind of understand and appreciate. The next thing I want to talk about is kind of zero in on what are some of the things that inspire you to keep going? Because a lot of times people think it's money, money is good. I think you're naive to think that money is not important to have, right? But I think passion I've heard a lot of successful people would say that after a while, they don't do it for the money.
Right.
It just becomes something they want to do because of their legacy and their passion. Where do you fall into that?
Legacy. That's what makes me wakes me up in the morning, because like I said, this has all been very fast for me.
Yeah.
So I was at a high, I was at a super low, I lost almost everything.
Yeah.
I went through it quick, like God showed me all of that.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where I was waking up, I said, oh, I'm not waking up just to make this anymore. Because we know that's proven.
Yeah, that you could do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's proven that I can show the next person how to do it, right? In whatever industry it is.
Yeah.
But legacy is like, how do I want to go out?
That's what I think.
When I started speaking at graduation, that was the one that I spoke at a graduation like last year. And I was like, man, I just graduated a year ago. I was saying that. I just graduated college a year ago.
And here you are talking at somebody's graduation.
Exactly. Yeah. Speaking at graduation, one classroom, and these people, I'm 23, and these are people that's close to your age.
Yeah.
So I'm like their big brother's age.
Yeah.
They're 18. They're like, man, you're the same age as my brother.
Yeah.
You know, and seeing that impact, they're texting me like, man, hey, how are you? And you're replying back, you know. That's what wakes me up, knowing that I can be the best out.
Where do you see, what are your projections now for the business? First of all, take me through again, just in case we went through it too fast, exactly what the company does.
We manufacture, we produce athletic apparel. It goes from dry fit shirts, we go from socks, all the way to football jerseys, basketball jerseys. We try to come up with new technology, different moisture wicking, designs, patterns, anything. That's what we're working in now.
Okay, and then what does your clientele looks like right now in terms of business? What's your prospect for this year, perhaps? What are you projecting for?
As far as who we want to focus on?
Yeah, you're focusing,
we want to focus on a lot of the youth organizations.
Okay.
A lot of, youth basketball, football. We're working with a few high schools now.
Okay.
We worked with a college in the past, and we're planning to get deeper and deeper. But right now, it's a big, get your name out.
Yeah.
People gotta recognize your brand. So
Yeah.
the way to do it is, okay, let's get it to the youth. From uniforms all the way to apparel, let them wear it at all times. So it's guerrilla marketing.
Yeah.
So we're getting it to them, make it affordable, getting it to them, and it's gonna trickle down, because that's where the vast majority is.
Okay. Before we started recording, you said 2017 was that pivotal year for you. Can you explain that to the viewers, why last year was such a crucial year for you and what you learned in business and all that?
2017, man, I'm gonna always remember that year. It was the year that I took the leap of faith, because that's what it is. This business is taking that leap of faith. So I took that. I remember walking. I was in the car dealership then. I walked to the manager and said, "Hey," gave him my checkout paper, and he said, "All right, I'll see you tomorrow." I said, "No, you won't." Exactly what I said. I had made up my mind. I called my mom and said, "Today's my last day."
You call your mom. What did she say?
And she said, "Okay."
Okay.
She said, "Okay," and she said, "I support you.
Good.
If you're gonna do it, do it." That's the same thing. If you're gonna do it, do it.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said, "No, you won't." I took that leap of faith, and at first, keep in mind, I was in school, or I always had a job at the time, so I always had something to fall back on.
Yeah.
But now, when you're solely responsible for everything,
Now you gotta hustle.
you gotta hustle at another level.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that until later on in the year. So I quit the job like in March. So I didn't realize that until later on in the year, to where all that money that you saved up is starting to go away.
Yeah.
But the expenses will stay the same.
They stay the same, or they increase depending on what you do.
Yeah, I just bought a car and everything.
Yeah.
Like when I made that decision, it was a decision time where nobody else would have made. Like I just bought a car and just got all this and that. So I made a very tough decision. But when I finally clicked and got into that mode, that's when I really started working and making those calls and doing this, doing that. And another reason why it's a very crucial year, because that's when I gained so much and lost it just as fast.
So tell me about the loss. The losses you experienced and what you learned from that.
Man, it was something that I didn't plan for, and something that I just didn't know.
Yeah.
You know, I just flat out didn't know because, you know, lack of experience. You know, we went through hurricanes. You know, that's when Hurricane Irma and everything was very big, and they were very impactful. For, you know, they made a lot of damage in Florida and in Houston as well. That's where my production was being made. Orders were lost. Orders had to get started over. You know, so now you're getting all this money and having to pump back into it.
How much money did you lose from Florida and?
For those two, and then including with, I had to give like some refunds out and everything. In a month, I probably lost almost $25,000 easily. And I was sitting there thinking, I remember it, like that was me at my lowest point. Like my mom heard everything, my dad heard everything, my friends heard everything. Like I was at a point where I did not want to work no more. Because it's like, how did I gain? I didn't even know I had that to lose. How did I gain all of this? Quick, you know, doing these interviews, doing this, doing that. Like I feel like I'm on top of the world now. And
then disaster happens.
Right, and I still have to show up every morning because I still got these other orders I need to get out.
So you got to still stay motivated in the middle of your struggle. So that's where faith really comes in. And you believing that you're going to be able to recuperate all this stuff and get back on your feet. I think it's really, I remember there was a point in my life when, for me, it was I wanted to go to college and my family couldn't afford it. And I had stopped going to church. Because I thought, you know, how come somebody like me who really wants to do something good with his life can't go to college? Am I not supposed to, I'm thinking, am I not supposed to be blessed in a way that the doors just open for me to go to college? And of course, this is growing up in the Caribbean, right? In Trinidad. And so I'm thinking, I stopped going to church because I was upset with God. Because this whole thing doesn't make any sense. I'm trying my best. I'm trying to figure out how to get to the U.S., how to go to college. I mean, I'm not trying to do anything bad. How come stuff's just not? So I stopped going to church, and my grandmother went to see the lady who plays the piano and stuff at church, who used to play the piano in church that I went to. And so after they had a prayer night on a Wednesday night, she came by the house after a prayer night because she was close by. And we were talking in the backyard, and she said something to me, really simple words. She was like, you know what? Failure is for everyone. It's not just for you. So the fact that you have not been able to figure out how to go to the U.S. and how to go to college yet, and because I was young then, you know, don't think that is just, don't ever think that failure is just for you and you're the only one experiencing it. And then she said, if you just get back up one more time, and man, those words live with me, because the funny thing is the next year I was in college, I had scholarships, I had all this kind of, and it's just kind of just funny how I just got back up, I started going to church again, and I think, so now when something happens in my life, I won't say fall down, or maybe I'll fall down for a while, but I get back up because I believe. And I think in business or in personal life or anything like that, I think when you believe, it's a hell of a thing, either good or bad. If someone believes in something, but hopefully it's for a good cause, because a person who believes is a dangerous person or a very powerful person, depending on how you look at it. So in your case, what I'm hearing is, you know, yeah, you're in bed, you're this, you're that, you sulk for a while, but you get back up and you.
The power of the mind is not a joke. It's not a joke. It's when I was going through it, I wanted to quit. I said, man, I can just go do this. I won't have to deal with this.
You got a job over here.
I don't have to deal with it. And which is, you know, that's, so for me, when I got to that point where I was constantly reminding myself, you're going to get through this. It's just for a week. And then it went to 2 weeks. You're going to get through it just for 2 weeks. Just for 3 weeks. Just for, that went on for 8 weeks to 2 months. It went on that long. Of all these people calling you, all this. And it's easy for your friends to say, oh, you'll get through it, just get through it. But until you believe it, that's when you're happy.
You know, anyone could, you could have faith in someone, but if the person doesn't have faith in themselves, then nothing's going to happen. And the belief you're talking about, I did a video on that. I call it CDT, cognitive deficit thinking, which is basically the person who don't have that kind of confidence in themselves,
Right.
and they beat themselves up over and over and over again. So you get to the point where you operate from a position of deficiency.
Right.
You're never thinking positive.
Right.
And so if you're constantly thinking negative all the time, then every time you come across a new situation or circumstance, and it doesn't immediately turn out the way you think it should,
Right.
then that CDT, cognitive deficit thinking, and you're always operating from a negative standpoint.
Right.
You never be successful
Right.
like that. I tell my students all the time that your brain is everything.
Right.
If you get up here to give a presentation and you don't think you could do good, you're not going to do good.
Right.
Because you've already convinced yourself that you're not going to do good.
Right.
You know, and then so that's what I call CDT, someone who has cognitive deficit thinking, and we all suffer from it, but we're all able to overcome it. And what I'm hearing you saying, and what I believe too, is that you believe that there's something better.
Yeah.
Right? You believe that life is not just about having a job for you. Like life is creating things for you.
Right.
You know, there's the creator and then the person who buys the creation,
Right.
type of stuff.
Right.
And I see you as more as a person who creates.
Right.
So, you know, you might go through those moments where you don't feel like doing certain things, but then it's like, well, I'm not so much of a buyer, I'm more of a creator.
Right.
And I think creators are the ones who start businesses,
Right.
and think about their legacy and the things that they want to do.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you really pointed that out,
Yeah.
because during that time when I was at my lowest, you know, I said, okay, I got to figure something out. Then I was sending my work to people, let them do it, you know, paying, you know, this and that. I taught myself graphic design. I was going through this for 8 weeks. I taught myself graphic design. I was trying to teach myself another language because I wanted to reach, you know, a different audience. I was starting to teach myself Spanish. I learned French a little bit in high school.
I'm just starting to work on that too.
Okay. Right. So I sat down. People don't understand how much time we have in a day, you know.
Yeah.
And how young I am, at this time I was 22, I was staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning anyway. So,
Yeah.
You know, I started working at 11 o'clock, and I was staying up for an additional 3-4 hours. Yeah. So I said, you know.
Just because.
Yeah. You know, watching Martin. You know.
Yeah.
So I put my headphones in. I pulled up my laptop, and there was some great friends that's also in the business from Thomas & Thomas Customs.
Yeah.
He like, man, you need to really learn this. You know, you can tell me, but until you apply it. So I applied it. I started teaching myself graphic design. So all my work that comes out now is either created by me or someone on my team. A lot of it is from me. You know, when I'm in that mode, I just sit down, put my headphones in, I just create.
Okay.
You know, and I taught myself this at my lowest point.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's probably the biggest. There's a lot of things I took from that. You know.
What are some, as we're getting close to the end, what are some things that you've learned in business that you want to share with anyone who's watching? What are some of the things, looking back now, I mean, you're still learning, still growing, but so far to this point, what are some things that you've learned in business that is absolutely critical for anyone who wants to start their own business and run their own business?
Start. That's the number one thing. We can plot, we can plan, we can debate with our brother, we can read Seth Godin's books, but until you take that step, it will never happen. That is the biggest thing, and you can't be afraid to lose. I'm sorry, it's not losing, it's learning. You can't be afraid to learn. Yes, I lost a lot, but those are all learning experiences because I went back, I revisited invoices, I revisited this, revisited the different processes. You have to start, and then you have to give it your all. You have to be consistent. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Because
consistency, dedication.
Dedication, because you have to find that true belief, that faith other than money. Because if you're waking up for money, you're gonna hit a ceiling at some point.
Yeah.
Because your business is you're gonna start being very lazy within certain departments. That you should be better on.
So I do some life coaching. I mentioned to you before we started the interview with some substance abuse victims, people who are suffering from drug addiction. And one of the reasons I always tell them that they should really think about turning their life around is, how do you want to be remembered?
Right.
right? And do you want to just let it be the fact that you were alive or that you actually lived?
Right.
Because I think there are two differences,
Yeah.
big differences between someone who was alive and someone who lived,
Right.
right? If you lived your life, it meant that you started the business.
Right.
You went to school, you did whatever it is
Right.
that you needed to do. And as we're on that, another thing I always point out is success is relative. What is successful to me might not be successful to you.
Right.
And then never let anyone define for you what is successful. Whether it is money or education or whatever the case is, you determine that. But legacy, looking back, and I was saying this for me at 12 or 13 years old, I was saying, what do I want my legacy to be?
Right.
Right? That's how you're remembered for what you did.
Right.
And so did you live or were you just alive?
Right.
You know?
Right. And yeah. And there's one thing that I always tell my friends, my family, and every time I speak somewhere or something. There's two facts. My mom used to take us to a nursing home a lot, me and my brother, when we was younger. And we used to hate it. I used to hate it. For some reason, I did not want to go. Like, man, I could be watching Dragon Ball Z right now. But then you start remembering, we had to listen to stories from them and everything. And now that I'm older, this is the thing I took from them. When you're at that age, when you're older in your 70s, 80s, you know, you live so long.
Yeah.
You only talk about two things: what you've done and what you wish you should have done.
Yeah.
And at that age, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Because, you know, oh, I wish I would have did this.
Yeah.
I wish I would have did that. I wish I would. There's a lot of things I'm wishing right now.
Yeah.
You know, but it didn't happen. So now I take that, you know, going forward, and I tell people that because that's what matters to them.
Yeah.
Even if it's doing it for a year, doing it for 2 years. Hey, I've done it.
I tried.
I tried.
Yeah.
I could not be in business 30 years from now, but I'll be only in my 50s and I can say, hey, I remember when I did this though, and this how I did it.
Yeah.
This is where I messed up
At least I did it. At least I tried.
Right.
Versus to just sit there and I have difficulty with people who complain year after year about how difficult the system is.
Right, right.
Or how hard life is.
Mm-hmm.
Or and the thing is they're not doing anything to change their life or whatever, but they're complaining every year. And you realize, man, you wake up one day, it's January 1st, and you blink and it's like, man, they're putting out Christmas stuff again.
Yeah.
it's like, it's almost Christmas again.
You're absolutely right.
And what have I done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when I turned 20, like it's like 21 for some reason. After I turned 21, it's like time just started moving. I was like, good Lord, it's the holiday season again?
Yeah.
Like this past holiday season, I was not aware of it until they like got it. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. There's a lot of people that complain, but what are we doing about it?
What are you doing about it?
Just,
yeah. Because you can just complain and be gripey until you're dead.
Right.
And not live your life.
Right.
And then be envious or jealous of people who are actually trying to do something with their lives. So, anything else you'd want to share as we're wrapping up? Any other advice that you want to give or anything like that? And then I want you to mention your website also, and how people can contact you. And I'm obviously going to post all this as well, but you could.
Right. The biggest thing is whatever you decide to do, you have to have tunnel vision. That has to be your goal. You have to set the goal. You have to realize where you want to be at on the totem pole. You know, some people want to be billionaires. Some people want to be millionaires. Some people want to be thousandaires. Some people just want to say, hey, I just want to do something that's mine.
I can pay the bills.
Exactly. You have to. That's something. That's a decision that you have to make. Nobody else can make that for you. So as soon as you make that decision, then you have to have tunnel vision, and now it's time to go to work. You know, and I think self-actualization is one of the biggest steps. That's what you have to really realize who I am and where I want to be at in life. And
it's funny that you say that. Another thing, also with the people that I work with and counsel and stuff, I always say you could never run from yourself.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter where you go. You know, we say, well, I'm not going to move back into the neighborhood where I was doing drugs.
Right.
That's fine.
Right.
But you're moving somewhere, right? You're taking you with you. So until you figure out who you are, I think life becomes easier when you realize your purpose.
Right.
And you accept who you are as well. You know, I think life becomes easier. So, yeah. Your website?
The website, we can go to www.NationTenBrand, that's NationTen, brand.com. You can follow us on Instagram.
Put that out there as well.
Yes,
What's
sir.
your Instagram?
Instagram is, you can just type in NationTen Brand. My personal one is Little Boone 1, LILBOONE 1. Yeah.
All right. Also include his information as well. So thank you very much, sir, and it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.